Hi everyone, it's Michelle Silverman Bedell.
And Leslie Jones. Today we thought we'd like to talk about seasonal buying, and we're waiting
Correct.
for Maria Esposito to join us from Citizens Bank.
Right. That there are a lot of pluses and minuses about buying at this time of year. And we're in the holiday season already, right? We're pre-Thanksgiving, and then it begins Christmas. And then things really start to kind of slow down. It's interesting. Always at this time of year, I tend to be very busy. People think, oh, it's going towards the holidays. You should be able to take off, and there aren't many transactions happening.
Well, that's definitely not true. In fact, we were sitting at closing the other day, and one of the attorneys said this is the busiest time. It's generally slow, and we're seeing a lot of new contracts coming up right now. So that's definitely it's definitely happening where there are new contracts coming into place. Definitely during the holiday season, though, I see that it slows down, meaning um,
Right.
from Thanksgiving to
Christmas.
Christmas or New Year's.
Right. Oh, there's Maria. Okay. Hi, Maria.
Hi, sorry.
We were
How are you
looking for you.
guys?
And we're good. We're good. So, Chime in was speaking about seasonal buying and the
Yeah.
advantages of buying. And I mean, from a real estate perspective, I think that listings as is sitting on the market, and although there are not many, because the market continues to be quite strong and robust, any seller or homeowner who's sitting on the market, they may be more negotiable at this time going into the holiday season when things start to really slow down. So I think if a buyer's out there, you could tend to find some more value in your purchases. And there's just maybe less competition. People are away, people travel, people are thinking holiday spirit and holiday mode rather than really focusing on the transaction or a really big
Oh, yeah, for
decision.
sure. Like it's always around this time of year where, people who I've been working with, having pre-approved them and all of that, where many of them will say, you know what, I'm just going to take a pause, over the next couple of months. So I feel like there's, less competition, out there, which creates more opportunity
Right.
for somebody that stays in the market to perhaps find, the right home and make an offer and not be competing as much, for the same home.
Right.
Right, I would think so. But in terms of a mortgage, do you feel, I mean, I was listening to somebody on the news yesterday and they're projecting the rates to come down again towards the end of by the end of 2025 in December
Hmm.
and going forward in 2026. I have no idea if it's accurate, but that's what I heard. And you may be able to chime in also. I think there are advantages, although I'm not a CPA by any means, for closing by the end of the year in terms of taxes.
Well, some people, it's the advantage is to close. If you're selling, the advantage is to close the following year, so that you
Okay,
Right,
don't have to pay,
pay your
your
taxes.
gain for
Right.
a while.
Okay.
So,
right.
so there's definitely different ways to look at it. It depends if you're a buyer or a seller, and what you're looking to achieve. So,
Yeah.
so
I
that's not necessarily always, but
Yeah, you
Right.
never know.
But it
I think
could be, right, right,
right,
depending on what your own, like, personal situation is.
correct.
On the mortgage side, I can tell you that at this time of year, it's when, um, lenders are also like closing out on their balance sheet. And like I can tell you, like I know like the bank that I work for, Citizens, I know of other banks, I know M&T in particular, like will oftentimes like offer better, like will lower their rates even more, so like
really.
maybe the market is improving as well, but also where they're offering additional incentives because they're trying to get, more closed loans before the end of the year, more fundings, before they start getting into next year's
Right.
balance sheet. So, um, not that that's anything really that, the average person would be able to, like, call around and find out, but I do feel that there are those opportunities exist around this time of year, and historically have as well.
Right.
Okay. And if you prepay your mortgage, are there any benefits? If you
I always,
prepay
I
your
always,
mortgage?
I, I always like to say, that's a question that's more suited for an accountant, right, than
Okay.
it is for a mortgage banker. Um, but I do know that there are, you know, um, that like anybody that's closing this month and next month, like if they are paying any points like to buy their rate down, which is
Right,
it's actually pretty popular, more so now than it
right,
was like, during the pandemic and all of that. That like all of anything that they pay in points is 100% tax deductible, right? So that would be a tax deduction that they're able to take once they file their 2025 tax returns next year.
right,
So yeah, for sure, like Leslie was saying, for the buyer, it would be more incentive to close before end of year as
Right.
opposed to
right,
closing in the beginning of next year because they can
right,
take that deduction pretty quickly,
right,
right? Same thing too, I think maybe with some property taxes and things like that.
Right.
right,
And
right,
sometimes the transaction, you can't really control it so much when it closes because
right,
other things come up, obviously, that control the situation. So as well, everyone says, I have to close. It
right,
doesn't
Right,
necessarily work out that way.
right,
right, right.
right. Oftentimes, correct.
Sometimes, yeah. So, unfortunately, as much as we'd like to drive it a certain way, doesn't always work in our favor because there may be something that pops up on
Yeah.
title or something else. But we do try to take all of that into account.
I will
I
say,
do see like another thing that we see is for from people that might be considering a job change.
right,
A lot of times it will happen at the end of the year, right? Like maybe they
right,
want to wait out their bonus and then they want to start their
fresh, yeah,
start a new job. So we always see a pickup with like I'll always get some calls saying like, oh, I'm moving to another company. It's a bigger salary increase. I want to, now I want to look for something either like more expensive
right,
or, something bigger. So you tend to see a lot of job changes around this time of year also.
right. And also, go
Yeah, the
ahead.
job market also, I had one this recently where, we were about to sign a contract and it was an off-market deal. And the buyer just realized that their job wasn't so secure.
Right,
So then
Yeah.
they pulled back. So some of that, there's some job insecurity right
right,
now. So
Yes.
that definitely was like a kind of I haven't
Yeah,
seen that in
that
a
can
while.
happen this time of
Yeah,
year also.
yeah,
Yes.
right.
Companies doing like reduction in
laying out.
forces and things like that. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
But I think that's a good point. I think people are concerned about, even though the market is strong in terms of the real estate market and even the stock market has been relatively strong, I think, this year. But I think people are starting to they're questioning their job security. So that obviously will impact the buying power of people. I have a client too. We saw some homes, and he doesn't want to pull the plug on anything until he knows he's more secure on the job that he's applying for. Even though
Yeah.
it's in a similar industry, because I told him don't make a change unless
Yeah.
it's similar industry. But the people are a little bit skittish today unless you really have a lot of cash.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, it's not necessarily related to the holidays, and maybe it's a topic for another call. And certainly, like we don't ever talk
Right.
politics here, but there is chatter of people that are like wanting to move out of the city into Westchester, Connecticut.
Suburban markets.
Yeah, suburban markets, concerned about like perhaps the direction that the city might be going in.
Correct.
So I feel like I'm definitely hearing some of that already.
Right.
Everyone, yeah,
Me
it's
too.
definitely in the market.
Right.
It's definitely the
Interestingly
chatter.
enough, I have a friend of mine who has somebody, a relative from Ireland that is moving here for the next 2 years for their job, moving to the U.S. And they were looking at houses in Greenwich to rent. And they told her that all of the homes they were looking at have been pulled. They're no longer up for rent because the real estate agents are holding them to list them
The
because
same.
for sale because they feel that there's going to be
A
a
push.
demand for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I take Spanish lessons with somebody in Argentina, and apparently in their newspapers, I think it's called La Nacion, they have discussions about our political situation here, and specifically about the mayoral race in New
Yeah.
York City. So it's kind of interesting how it's kind of the chatter is spreading beyond
Yeah.
even the United States. So I
Yeah.
think it would be interesting to see what does
What
ensue
happens
in the next
exactly?
few months, you know,
Hmm.
especially going into the spring. But I will say, going back to this topic that we're
Hmm.
discussing today, in general, as we approach the holidays, for a buyer, there may be less competition in the market.
Yep.
And because they'll be, you know, preoccupied with other events. So it may be a good time to buy. I always get busy at this time of year
Same.
and with a lot of new buyers.
Right. I definitely am seeing continuous contracts. Maybe not like it's not like the summertime, you know,
Right.
where
Right.
like the fall, I mean, fall, beginning of fall, or you know,
Right.
it's not the busiest time, but maybe it's a good time to slip in and jump in. And like I said, it's still very busy. We were surprised this year how busy it is.
Right. And hopefully going into 2026, it will continue to be busy. On that note, we wish everybody a great day and a great week. And we'll see you next week on
All
East
right.
Live. Be
Have a
well.
great one. Thanks, guys. Bye
Have a
bye.
good weekend.
Bye bye.